We are going to be diving into team culture and swimming as a team sport, which I think is pretty controversial for some reason. And there's a lot of really cool research out there about how that is not the case. But we're going to dive into some stuff like that. Sean Workman is our director of leadership training and character development at Swim Strong Dryland. So we got some really insightful stuff coming your way. Excited for the conversation. Well, before we get into that, Sean, we are going to do part 2 of rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I guess I am. Let's do it.
All right. So you were obviously a backstroker and IMer in your up through your college career. But if you could not swim, backstroke, or IM, what would be your main event? You can pick your favorite event to do that was never one of your best events.
You know, I think I'd go with the 100 breaststroke. I really the 200 breaststroke's too long. That's too much breaststroke for me. But the 100 breaststroke I always really liked because it was like this perfect balance of trying to sprint yet stay controlled when you're doing the pullouts, and obviously you can't spin when you're. I never figured it out, but I feel like had I had a little bit more try at it, I think I would have enjoyed it and been pretty decent at it. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that one.
How about the event you most fear that you never want to do again?
Unfortunately, I think it was my at one point in time favorite, the 200 backstroke. I think if I attempted a 200 backstroke right now, I would be 100% seeing stars after the 100 turn. And I don't know what that last 50 would look like. And I think it's the idea too that I did so many 200 backstrokes in my career that I know where I should be in that race. And if I were to try it now, I would try to be at that same place and hit the same paces, and it wouldn't end up going. So
the mind and the body in two different spots.
Yeah, I think that one's in the past now. So
we got our first ever true or false rapid fire question. True or false? Team Sean won the Elite Camp title in 2023.
Oh yeah. That's definitely true, and it's gonna be true again for 2025.
Unlikely. Team Eric's coming for 2025, but we'll see. How about your favorite fast food joint?
Ooh, favorite fast food joint. I might have to.
This is, of course, for the 10 to 20% of stuff.
Yeah.
80-20 rule.
Yeah, no, obviously. I think I'm gonna go with Cane's chicken fingers. Ooh. I really, or whatever their official name is, Cane's chicken.
It's just Cane's, yeah.
Yeah, Cane's. Cane's is top notch.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for giving the audience some insight into some more behind the scenes of Sean Workman. And we're going to go ahead and jump in, though. I want to ask, this is something that you and I have talked about quite a bit, and I know you have a significant passion for. It's helping people understand that swimming is not just an individual sport. But I know before we get into that, obviously people have to believe that team culture really matters for performance and results. I think a lot of people say character matters, team culture matters, all these things matter. It'll be in people's mission statements, but then there's like absolutely nothing done in terms of actually building team culture and focusing on character. It's just buzzwords. Yeah. Can you just, before we dive into the team sport discussion, can you just talk a little bit about some of the research you've done around team culture and how it actually impacts results?
Yeah. So there's been a significant amount of research specifically towards athletics, but obviously there's even more when it comes to a business setting, for example, or really any kind of team setting that we see. And there's a lot of different dynamics that can be at play in a team's culture, but ultimately what it comes down to is your team's culture is driving the motivation of all the individuals within that team. I like to think of it as, everybody's a spoke on that wheel. And if you have one spoke that is a different length than another, it's going to disform and deform how that wheel looks and how it's able to operate. So in order to get, to a place where you have an effective team culture, you have to make sure that you're all turning at the same kind of wavelength, so to say. You're all on the same page with each other. What the goals of the organization are going to be. And then you also not only know that, but then you uphold what those goals are going to be in whatever your individual role is going to be. And obviously, this looks really, really different from sport to sport. Our typical team sports, what we think of, football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, the sports that do require you to almost rely on your teammates. That's where I think the majority of the team culture conversations lie in. I mean, like you said, though, I think there probably isn't a single club team out there or college team out there that hasn't mentioned something about team culture at some point or another. It's just a matter of, though, are things actually getting put in place for it? And then, you kind of get to a point, and I want to know your opinion on this too, but we start to ask the question of how much influence actually does team culture have? Because that should kind of dictate how much of our training time is spent towards it. If it, for example, takes up 20% of your success rate, that's a completely made up number that I just made. Don't hold me to that. But, for example, if it gives you a 20%, if you can see, our team culture is going to boost us by 20% in this, and this category, then we should probably spend about 20% of our resources or time or whatever it might be towards that area, because we know it's going to be paid off in the long run.
Yeah, building that in. That makes sense. And I feel like if you can build in team culture activities, team bonding, like things that get everybody on the same page, working towards a common goal, I think people miss the tangible aspect of what you're talking about. Like, well, what does it matter? Like, if I train, I'm just going to swim my own lane anyway and like train and I'll get faster or I won't. But your motivation at practice every day contributes to how well you train. How much you care about your teammates and your team goals contributes to your mindset and how you train and how you handle your sleep and how you handle your nutrition and like all these ways where it's like, no, it's actually not just you in your lane. Everybody around you affects you. And you don't have to look any further than I'm sure everybody watching this and yourself included can think of a time where maybe a team you're a part of, whether it be a high school team, a summer league team, a club team, college, whatever, or maybe just like one specific year where you're like, there was some toxic people and like gossip was rampant on the team and people were lazy and they complained. And how did that affect you? Did it affect you? And I think everybody would say it was really hard to show up to practice. It was really hard to be motivated to work hard versus the opposite. And so I don't know, people just is, being a swimmer yourself, a lifelong swimmer, I mean, it's pretty obvious to you the teams that like had that camaraderie versus teams that like, you're like, I don't really want to be at practice today.
Yeah, 100%. And, even going off of that, it changes year to year too, even on the club level, high school level, and collegiate level. Every time that you have new people coming into the practice group or the team, obviously the seniors graduating out or people moving up into their next level of practice group, whatever it might be. It's always something that is dynamic. And there obviously are a few non-variable factors in most scenarios, like a coach, for example. The pool that you're going to be in, the physical environment remains the same. But it really does depend on the individuals you have around you. And unfortunately, there can be situations where just one individual can really kind of put a smear on how you remember that team and what you take away from it. And I know me as a swimmer personally, I definitely, looking back on the teams I was a part of, the number one thing, the first thing I think of is the team culture that we had, how connected we all were. I mean, I think a lot of other swimmers can attest to the times and remembering the exact competitions and what you're, every dual meet you go to, every race that you swim at a conference championship meet. Those things won't necessarily stay forever in the memories, but it's the emotions that you shared with your team during those processes. Those are the things that really solidify with you, because those are the most vivid memories we can have. And I think you have more memories with better teams that have better team culture. And honestly, I'll flip that question back to you as a coach. I mean, do you have certain opportunity or certain teams that you've coached that have kind of stood out to you? Like, you're like, yeah, that was the team right there.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to remember those. And obviously I won't mention like specific scenarios on the negative side, but like there's certainly like, wow, these people really like did make life miserable for a lot of people around them. And it gets 1,000 times harder as a coach when you're working with people who don't want to be there, who detract from culture, who are jealous of people who are doing well. I mean, there are legitimately a good amount of people out there who don't want to work hard, who, if someone does try to change a team culture and has a great attitude and has high character, they'll get called a try hard. They'll get called someone who's a goody two shoes. They'll be made fun of as some, if you have that type of culture, hard work is almost made fun of. And it's like, the same people that are making fun of that are the same people who are going to do absolutely nothing, significant with their lives. And they're going to be miserable one day. And the only reason people do that is because they don't want other people to succeed, because it makes them feel worse about themselves for being the way, that they are choosing to be. And it is a choice. You get to choose that. And so anyway, as a coach, like, I appreciate so much the people, and you're one of them, the people who step up to lead and help almost be another voice for the coaches on deck, because you're like, hey, look, I know the coaches have this standard and this is the culture and this is the tone that they want us to set, but like, I'm actually going to take it for myself and bring this to my teammates. And in my opinion, when athletes step up and lead, it's 10 times more powerful than a coach, because you're like, oh, the coach has to be positive. The coach has to. And it's like, that's not true either, but that's how a lot of people view it. But when the athletes take it upon themselves, it changes the game. And was there a time that clicked for you? Because I feel like there's a lot of kids out there who want to lead and want to change the culture, but they're terrified of what people might say or think, or how they'll drag them down or make fun of them, whatever. What clicked for you? When did you stop caring ultimately, and like that switch flipped? What was it that you were like, I no longer care as much about this as I do about what I can see on the other side?
Yeah, I think to answer that and to kind of back it up to something you mentioned earlier as well, which will lead into to answering that question you had there. But I think when you get individuals that, whether consciously or subconsciously, make it their goal to bring down the team culture. One thing that I reference on our leadership calls is there's a green team, a gray team, and a red team within everybody's team. You're either contributing green towards the team, you're creating a positive environment, you're staying neutral, kind of just floating between the two, and you're the type of person that really becomes influenced by those that are either the loudest or the most influential on the team. For example, if everybody that has big influence on the team shows up green that day, everybody in the gray is also going to show up green. And I think that's what happens when you get an individual that may be acting in the red, is the more and more that they act in the red and get away with it and don't get called out for those actions, it becomes normalized. And once it becomes normalized, like you said, you might get even into a situation where you have somebody coming in trying to act green on their team, putting in, the work, putting in the values that are needed to establish the culture you're looking for. But they're just immediately shut down because that's not how the team operates right now, and anytime, I know this is something you've mentioned as well on the podcast, but anytime you see change in a certain category, people are going to be resistant to that. And I think for any of the athletes that might be in that situation where they're like, I know a change needs to be made, but right now the current standard on my team is not to make any changes. The standard is to let's keep it the same with what we're doing. And regardless if now this, again, doesn't necessarily have to do with the coaching perspective of things. This could be just in one individual within a group. It could be a group of individuals. It really looks different from team to team. But I think the most important part is to have your green voice, so to say, louder than the red voices. And what's going to start to happen is people will recognize that that is the right path to go down. Obviously, hard work works, and showing up and approaching your work with dignity, with respect for the people around you, respect for your coach that took the time to write that practice to help you improve, and you're actually going to show up and give it your 100%. The more that you start to do these things, the more that people are going to recognize that's the way to go about things. And maybe we've had it a little backwards.
What's funny to me is that as you're saying that, I'm thinking there's people on the red team that you're talking about when you're using that analogy of red team, people detracting from the team, pulling away from the team culture, negative team culture. Those people still get mad when they get to championship meets and they don't perform. And I always found that baffling. It's like, you're not actually allowed to get mad if you're not contributing anything positive to the team culture and you don't work hard, like, you're not allowed to be mad. You're not, because it's not a justified response.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't make any sense. It's not even logical. But the people in the red don't realize that it's just always, I should be given stuff. I should still be successful without having to do any of the work. And sadly, I think that's kind of prevalent in a lot of our culture today, where stuff's just handed to us and like instantaneous. And but it's just interesting, because that even in the people who are in the red, there is something inside them. If you can find it, if you can inspire someone who could switch and become a leader on the team and do something special, and actually do some crazy things, not just in the pool but in life. And but what would you say, like, what was your mindset to actually make that switch? Because you, as an athlete, like, if you think back to high school, you did flip a switch mentally, not like who inspired you or anything like that. Just what was it for you that you were like, I care about this more than I care about my friends' approval? Because that's usually the thing. It's like, what are my teammates going to say? What are my friends going to think? This isn't as cool. This isn't the norm right now that our team lives by. Like, if hard work isn't cool on your team and laziness is cool, then like it's hard to change that if you care a lot about opinions. So for you, why did it change?
Yeah, I just going off that last point. Yeah, leadership, I think, is all about affirmations, right? It's all about what the people around you say. Yeah, I like that. That goes for, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, the kind of Amazon Prime mentality, which I know Mike LaMonica mentioned on podcast a couple of weeks ago. Kind of having this mentality of just wanting things right now. And the more that you see those things, the more that it's affirmed in your everyday living, it becomes easier to accept that that's the truth and that's the way things happen. So I think a lot of these athletes that get into that situation might not even know that they're in that situation and are making those choices. From their perspective, this is just the way things go. And they haven't been introduced, to maybe that other side of, hey, we have to work towards something for a longer term. Rather, nothing's going to happen in just a couple days. And, I think that's a lesson that obviously applies to many things outside of the sport of swimming, but one that is very hard to learn. But once you get it, you get it. And I think what happened for me in high school is I got it. I just kind of, it clicked for me one day that the work that I'm doing as I'm showing up, whether it be while I'm sleeping, how much sleep I'm getting, the recovery modalities that I'm taking, the food that I'm getting, the hydration I'm getting throughout the day, all of these things pertain to performance. And then the next thing that I started to notice was what's going on around me on the team. And as you're trying to make changes personally towards certain things, whether it be, to increase your work ethic or to eat healthier, whatever it might be, anytime that you are trying to make these habit changes personally, it becomes very, very difficult to do if the people around you also aren't making the same efforts. And, with that being said, obviously you don't want to force somebody to do something they don't want to do. But the sole fact that they're showing up to practice each day tells me that they do want to get better. And if that's the case, then we better go about it the right way. And I think that's when it kind of clicked for me that, what I'm trying to do is not necessarily just become a better individual swimmer, but I'm trying to elevate my team right now. And if we can elevate the team, we're all going to be better as a result of it. I mean, you're going to get better practices. You're going to be able, even inter squad meets that you have, there's going to be better races in, just dual meets, local meets and stuff that you have as well with your teammates. Alongside of that as well, I think that, team culture really plays a massive role into the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation that's present on the pool deck. And I think if you can have your team all bought into similar goals, obviously everybody has different individual goals. But if we can find something that we can man together for a team goal, then it becomes bigger than us. And when anything becomes bigger than you, ask anybody that's been a part of anything bigger than them. They're going to tell you that you're going to work way harder for that than you are just for yourself.
That's a great point when you're swimming for something that's not just you. And relays are a great example of that. When you're swimming for the team, you've seen people go 2-3 seconds faster sometimes, even in a 50. But especially in like the hundreds, you'll see drops like that on the regular. And you're like, I couldn't do that in my individual. I did it here. Well, you know why? Because you got mentally you got out of your own way. You weren't thinking about yourself and your swim. You were just like, I'm here, I'm doing this for the team. And you just swam. You just let your body do what it's capable of doing, and you got out of your own way because you were thinking about something bigger than you. And I think that that's powerful. And so like we're talking about these things, these things like culture, character, team camaraderie, team goals, that unified team goals. These are things that actually make you perform better. It's crazy. And so people will be like, oh, that's cheesy. Why would I spend my time focusing on that? Like, I just need to train. I just need to train. It's like, no, this is training. This is a part of your results.
And to interject there, I mean, I'm sure there might be some listeners that are like, oh, okay, well, they're just saying that it makes you better. There is statistical analysis that has proven strong to very strong correlations with both team culture, the levels of communication within your team, the cohesion levels within your team, how well you're able to call each other out in practice and motivate each other. All of these things have strong or very strong correlations to better individual performances at the end of the day. It's been statistically proven. So given that, I think what we were kind of mentioning earlier is how then do we start to stress the importance of, for a lack of a better way to say it, practice our team culture, is get better in those areas. And I think that's where the sport of swimming needs to start to look next. And we can take things from sports like football, for example. I attended a football clinic about a year ago that was talking about the importance of building team culture. Obviously, in a football team is very, very important. But there's a lot of things we can take from a team culture like that is that tight knit and start to apply it into the sport of swimming. Yeah. I think you're going to see better performances and then a better enjoyment for the sport of swimming too, because this is another topic, but losing the love for the sport of swimming is certainly one of the biggest plagues, I think, in the sport, as far as keeping kids from seeing their full potential of what they're capable of.
So we hope you're enjoying this week's podcast. We want to take a quick break to shout out our sponsors.
Attention, all high school and club swimmers and divers. Are you ready to take your talents to the next level and dive into the collegiate scene? Look no further than ACC Recruiting, your premier destination for college swimming and diving recruitment education. At ACC Recruiting, we specialize in connecting student athletes with the perfect collegiate programs that match their skills and academic aspirations. Our experienced team will guide you through the recruitment process, providing personalized support every stroke of the way. Don't let your dreams sink. Visit ACC Recruiting today and make a splash in your future. Dive into success with ACC Recruiting, where champions are born. Visit our website now or call us at 314-518-8844. That's 314-518-8844. ACC Recruiting, your gateway to collegiate swimming and diving excellence. Resistance bands are a must-have for dry land. Elite Athlete Power Band kits are designed to give you a cost-effective way to improve performance and reduce the risk of injury. These high-quality kits last longer and are versatile enough to provide total body workouts anywhere, anytime. The levels of resistance are ideal for progressing youth athletes without weight increases that are too large. Go to the link provided on the SwimStrong Dryland website, click on the Training tab, and search Equipment Suggestion Lists, and get your Elite Athlete resistance bands today. I know we're all trying to get better in the pool, which requires countless hours of training both in and out of the water. With that, I bet every swimmer has experienced dry, damaged skin and hair, not to mention the itchiness and lingering chlorine smell. I recently discovered TryHard, and after a few great conversations, we decided to team up to improve every swimmer's experience in and out of the pool. TryHard offers chlorine removal products specifically designed for swimmers to remove chlorine, hydrate your skin, eliminate those chlorine odors, and even minimize those annoying goggle marks. It's the perfect post-swim TLC for all swimmers, letting you focus on your sport without worrying about permanent skin and hair damage. If you're interested in learning more, click the link below. They've kindly offered you 20% off to give them a try with code STRONG, STRONG. Let us know your thoughts, and happy chlorine-free swimming. Now, back to our episode. How come this is kind of, for me, this is the elephant in the room, and the question that I think everybody needs to address, or at least think about, is how did we, specifically talking about club swimming right now, get to the point where it became so individualized? Why did we not have this concept of team, even though you might have hundreds thousands on some teams, depends on the size of your team, or even just 10 people around you. We have all these people that we're training around, but we got so lost compared to like so many other sports that has really strong team camaraderie. And I get that there's different age groups. I get that but you swim with your same age group. You're around everybody every day. Like, you can mentor younger people, and younger people can mentor older people, and you can have great relationships. Like, we hear all these excuses about why like swimming, it's just too hard in like club swimming to have team camaraderie. And I mean, like, just set up a system to actually implement it, right? Like, if we just actually, like, you're the director of leadership training and character development with Swim Strong. Like, you have a system that you're implementing and action items that happen every single month to help people grow in character, in leadership, in team culture. So what is it that we're getting so wrong with club swimming? Like, what is it that we need to reevaluate, I think, in this sport?
Well, I think there's two things that we can kind of put our marbles into as far as weight of energy and focus in this conversation. One of those is results, and one of those is kind of the non-tangible to results, which is our team culture. How much are people enjoying what we're doing is really, well, one part of team culture, but really kind of that intrinsic motivation. It almost kind of goes down to extrinsic versus intrinsic, right? You know, what are we chasing after? And I think when you lose sight of one over the other, you can see an imbalance. And this also is going to go the other way too. Like, if you have a situation where you're highly valuing that intrinsic, you know, developing the love for the sport, but you're not really paying attention to the extrinsic side of things. Like, for example, a summer league swim team where the sole purpose of a summer league swim team is to have as much fun as you can. You know, I know that the people in Northern Virginia are going to reach out and be like, no, summer league swimming is intense out here. And I know that. But coming from middle of nowhere, Illinois, you know, that type of summer league where it's simply there just, you know, for kids to have fun and do something this summer. I think that's the other side of the extreme where, you know, you've put all your marbles into the fun category, so to say, or the intrinsic motivation category. And you don't necessarily, obviously, we want to see good results. We want to see those kids improve so they are proud of themselves as well. But we're certainly not putting as big of a focus on summer league swimming as we are on somebody with eyes on the Olympics, so to say. But I think we can certainly learn from all of those situations, though. You know, I think we do need to find a better way to balance the two there. Innately, swimming is and I'm just going to say it, innately swimming is a not fun sport. You are staring at a black line. You can't talk to anybody while you're swimming. Like, I mean, I don't know any other sport, even like running, for example. I hate running, but I can talk to somebody during running and make it entertaining. You know, when you're swimming, it's all you. Obviously, you have the brakes on the wall and stuff. So I think just by the nature of the sport, it's a boring sport. So to say, as far as engaging with the people around you, just because there's not as many opportunity. So I think because of that, though, there needs to be an increased focus into how do we make this an environment that people want to show up to, that during those breaks, they are feeling the warmth of a team culture that picks them up and supports them. And it's not just like a very dull, cold, quiet, 30 seconds on the wall where all you hear is your teammates just panting and struggling in silence. Nobody wants to be a part of that. They want to be a part of a culture that they're excited about. So it's just finding the time to balance it, though. And I think that's the biggest issue a lot of club teams might face right now.
I do think it is very normal, and I don't know if it's human nature or what, but it does seem like people, there's definitely extremes. A lot of people struggle with balance. Like, some people are like, oh, this team, like, we're just going to have fun. We're not going to focus on working hard. Whatever happens, happens. And then you have the people who are so serious and forget the human side of the sport. And like, if we can just really bring those two things together and maximize enjoyment of the sport, love for the sport, and hard work, where you start to love and embrace hard work because you see what's on the other side, then you have something special. Like, that's when teams do crazy stuff, is when you start to love hard work because you have such a deep rooted love for the sport and for the people around you. Like, and you do anything for the people around you, and you want to see yourself, you want to see what you're capable of. All the other stuff like that, the boring stuff that you talked about, the repetitive grind of staring at a black line and going back and forth, and like that becomes fun. Like you start to eat that up because you're like, I know this is hard and I enjoy hard. I enjoy that. If you can get to that point, oh man, it's lights out. It's game over. You can do things that nobody ever thought you could do, and then everyone who made fun of you for working so hard, everyone who told you couldn't, every like setback that you had, like it's just going to be more motivation, and people will be like, oh wow, like
yeah. And going off that point, one thing that looking back on the teams that I had the best culture on, something as you were talking there that popped into my mind is, when you do have a team culture and such a good connection with your teammates around you, as I mentioned earlier, you're kind of just swimming by yourself when you're in the pool. But when you have a good team culture, you don't swim by yourself next to somebody. You're swimming with them during that set. Like I can remember multiple times training next to, a bunch of my buddies at Virginia Tech, Hassler Carroll, for example. I swear there would be some times we'd be in the middle of a set and we would almost have like telepathy. Like I would see him just turn it up the slightest notch and then I'll be like, all right, I'm matching that too. And it would be like simultaneous and stuff.
That's
and
awesome.
When you can get to that point where you and your teammates understand the goals, what you're wanting to do, and also where you guys are at, it just takes it to a whole nother level, and it becomes, it transitions then from this, what may seem like a monotonous, boring sport that you're staring at a black line for, into a truly team sport. And you get to the point, I mean, I know that year specifically, I couldn't have done a single set without my team next to me at the level that I did it.
That's awesome.
So
that's really cool and very true. Like I think everybody can think of someone who's made them better, and you didn't have to speak a word for that to happen either. And obviously, there are words spoken throughout there, but like in certain practices and things, which you don't even have to say anything, you just know, and they elevate you. And so I think just kind of wrapping it up, just from a team culture perspective, and really wanting to see more teams implement specific things to help grow team culture and character and leadership and camaraderie. Obviously, what you do is game changing, Sean, with Swim Strong and with all the teams that we have the privilege of working with and athletes we get to serve. But even beyond that, like I want to shout out like Coach Joe Keller from Fishers, just something that seems so simple. Like every single workout that the kids do, every single workout, there's a motivational quote on there. There's a quote there's a purpose behind the practices that have been written every day, every single day. And anytime I walk on the deck, he hands me the set as well, so I can see it and I can see the quote and what their focus is that day. And it's awesome. That takes thought, it takes effort, it takes planning, but anybody could do it. And it just takes care and passion and planning. And there's so much more, than just that. But that's just like, start there. Start with one simple thing, like just changing the way that your swimmers think about every set, what their mind is focused on. Instead of it just being the set, what's the purpose of the set? What are the deep rooted? I don't mean like the swimming purpose. I mean like, what are we focused on purpose as a team? That's so cool. And if you're an athlete listening to this, like a takeaway I have for athletes is take it upon yourself. Don't wait for your coaches to hand you something. Don't wait for your teammates to give you approval. Like lead the charge. Don't be afraid. Like you can literally change people's lives if you decide to lead. So any final thoughts from you, Sean?
Going off of that last point, what I'll say is great team culture creates purpose in everything that you do with that team. And I think when you can get to that point, whether it be creating the purpose first or the culture first, those things go hand in hand. And you'll see once you create a good culture that even the simplest tasks have a purpose behind it. Putting away equipment after practice, making sure that you're showing up exactly when you need to show up, and you're in the water at the second that coach is designating when you're getting in the water. All of everything that you do, no matter how little, if you have great team culture, there's a purpose behind it.
That's awesome. Thanks for all the insight, Sean. Thanks for coming on here and sharing with the world all of your insight around this topic. Obviously, there's a lot more to explore. I know you'd be the first to say that you certainly don't have it all figured out. You're just learning like everybody else, but you do an absolutely phenomenal job. And in my opinion, are one of the 4 leading people in this industry. and just absolutely making a huge impact. So thank you for everything you do, for all of our teams and athletes, and for everything in the swimming community. I appreciate you so much.
For sure. See you later, Swim Strong Nation.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch a new episode each Monday. You can also check us out on social media at SwimStrong Dryland. If you would like to join the SwimStrong family, visit our website at swimstrongdryland.com.